think outside the box, if you will. I mean, go there, go off campus. Let's think this through. And sure enough, that's where the Mustang was born. When it finally hit, it took the country by storm.
Hi, and welcome everybody. And this is another edition of Cars in Context, but as you can tell, we're not at WMTV studio. We're here in Cobo Hall for the Detroit Autorama. And this is the show that we're going to tell you what it's like to be inside the Autorama. What's the Autorama all about? To do that, we brought one of our best buddies, Joe Babiasz. Joe, welcome to Cars in Context.
John, good to see you again.
You know, Joe, this is the Motor City. We tell people this is the show where we put cars into the context of their lives. And really, when it comes to cars and the context of car guys in Detroit, what's better than the Autorama?
This is the epicenter. This is where it all happens.
This is where we have it, folks. And this is why it's so important for you to actually sit down for a few minutes and try to understand a little bit of what happens here. If you haven't been down to the Autorama in years, or you really don't know what it's all about, or even if you're a regular, this show will be a lot of fun. I think, Joe, we're going to try to shed some light on the history of this wonderful little car show and how it's grown over the years.
Oh, it's grown.
You know,
exponentially.
This is, Joe, the 62nd year?
It is.
You know, 62 years ago, this show grew out of two things we love: racing and car clubs. And sure enough, the Motor City Hot Rod Association, these guys that were driving around town, actually racing on the streets of Detroit.
Making trouble.
Yeah, getting in trouble with the police. They actually got to the point where in Livonia, one police officer said, guys, you got to stop the racing because you're getting a bad reputation in the city that hot rodders are bad people, that you're a bunch of hooligans. And so he was the one that came up with the idea of an old access road in Livonia. So the police department would measure it off, and they would spend a Saturday afternoon allowing guys to go drag racing. But if you got a ticket driving in the streets and racing in the streets, you were not eligible to come to the Saturday drag race.
Try to do that today.
I mean, that's cooperation between the police department and these people that were considered hooligans, driving their cars so fast.
Those hooligans.
But that's what car guys love to do. They love to fix up their cars like the cars you'll see today, and they love to go fast. And part of the reason why they broke off from that idea of racing in the streets, well, the police said, why don't you guys come up, build your own drag strip? Well, how do you get money when you're just a bunch of car guys? You put all your money in your car. Well, Joe, the bottom line was, folks, they decided, why don't we do a car show? Why don't we show people our cool hot rods? People always stop us, and so we'll put together a show. And I think it was, the Lake Guard Army a few years?
When they started, yes.
1953 was the first Detroit Autorama. They were stunned.
It was a small event.
Yeah, just
very small event.
Like 15, 16 cars. And it was so cool to go to the Autorama that, you know, these 62 years later now, look what's happened. It fills Cobo Hall.
World-class event. It's a world-class event.
It really is. It's on the radar of everybody. You'll see some really important car builders here, customizers, designers, and just the regular Joe.
Yeah, the people that make this hobby, the guys and gals that build their cars in their garages in many cases, many of them are here showing their hard work. And it's just a great exhibit.
So whether or not you're dreaming about something really cool, this isn't the stuff you'll find in any showroom. You know,
that's true. You don't go down to your Chevy dealer and buy one of these.
No. This is for the dreamer in us. So today we're going to take on the inside story behind the Autorama. Not just that it became a wonderful show, but it's world renowned for a couple of reasons. One is after a few years of growing the Autorama in Detroit and moving it to bigger venues, they hired a guy named Don Riddler. And Don was a real promoter. He was the kind of guy that thought, well, let's make it a show for the whole family. Let's bring in celebrities. He was the one that really promoted it. But Joe, he passed away at a very young age.
He passed away at an early age, and from that, in his memory, they started something called the Riddler Award,
right?
Which we'll see some of the cars here later on today. It's a very prestigious award. Part of it is the car can never have been shown before.
Right.
It has to be shown the first time at Detroit Autorama to be chosen for the Riddler Award. Has to meet a few criteria today they didn't do years ago.
Right.
It actually has to drive forward and backward on its own,
okay,
turn and stop, which I think is pretty interesting because most of the brake rotors are chrome plated.
Yeah.
And I would really hate to hit the brakes on a chrome plated brake rotor. But that's part of the requirement. You'll see some beautiful cars.
Oh.
No money was spared on these cars. Beautiful cars.
When you're a Riddler Award winner, that's like the top prize.
Yeah,
Your inaugural show You're taking this brand new car that you've designed, and really the rest of the customizing world will watch that. But it's more than just that, Joe. I mean, it's about regular people from all over the metro area bringing their cars and bringing them in. And we're going to take a little walk and take you inside the Detroit Autorama. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Okay, Joe, this is just one example of the cool kind of custom car you can only see at the Autorama. You won't see this at your typical cruise night.
No, that's true. I think it's a little bit too nice to drive on a daily basis. It's a beautiful 67 Pontiac Firebird. It's been customized. Still has a lot of the original cues to it, but yet there's a lot of nice custom features to it. Beautiful car.
The owners call this the essence of 67. And as you can tell, folks, I mean, when you look at it, you kind of know if you're a car person, wow, it's a Firebird hardtop, a full hardtop. But the customizing that's done in this car, Joe, it's down on the suspension. It's got side exit exhaust that they put in their own ventilation. Like, look at this spoiler.
Molded in rear spoiler, you know, large wheels, probably 22s.
The bumpers in the back have been cut into the body.
Yep.
The exquisite body
and
work.
the door handles.
Yeah, those are modern day door handles. I mean, this is the kind of exquisite body work, the kind of the attention to customizing details that you'll see all over the Autorama. Now, this is a relatively new car. It's not an antique. It's a car that, when they say the essence of 67, they've taken that 67 and smoothed it and modernized it. This is, to me, the fun of the Autorama is going to see what someone does with a car that I'm pretty familiar with.
Yeah.
And to
Beautiful
see
car.
what they're able to do just by creating something special.
And what they did with this is they put an LS2 late model engine in it, so you know it'll drive like a new car, go like heck. And if you can see from the mirrors on the bottom, the underneath is beautiful. It is as nice as the top of the car.
And that's something important, folks. Why do you see mirrors underneath these cars? It's not for the shiny reflection light. It's so that you can look down and to see that the attention to detail. The underneath the car is as painted and chromed and as perfect as the top of the car. And if you've been driving around in Michigan in February, that's not how the bottom of your car looks right now.
No, that's true. Yeah, and you certainly wouldn't take this to a car wash.
No, you would take this no such place.
Magnificent.
No, but when people
job.
talk about Autorama and they see this kind of car, what they usually they'd like to see are hot rods. And we're gonna talk about where hot rodding is gone, Joe. But the typical hot rod, there's one right behind us. Let's take a look at this.
Let's do it.
You look at this. And this to me is the kind of hot rod. When you talk about, you know, either a small coupe or, I mean, you got a 34 3-window Ford coupe, you know, velocity stacks. To me, this is the kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, here's the thing. It has a Buick nailhead engine, very traditional engine that was used in the 60s as a hot rod engine. It's fuel injected. It has the peanut magnesium kind of wheels. That's what they're called. Just a magnificent traditional chopped 3-window. You know, it checks off every box.
Yeah.
It checks off every box for this is a cool car. Kudos to the owner. Beautiful, beautiful ride.
And then you give it an attitude, and then you make the attention to detail, the chroming on everything. Look at the pinstripe work on the car. A very bright, can't miss it kind of color.
Yeah, it jumps. Absolutely jumps. Drop down quite a bit in the front. Has a really nice rake to it.
So a lot of people expect this kind of car at the Autorama, folks. But you know, you'll see these sprinkled in and out. We're kind of trying to find some of the more unique examples too. Let's keep on walking.
Okay.
All right, Joe, let's face it. When you talk about really cool American cars, I mean, there's some classics, Mustangs and Thunderbirds, and the shoebox Chevys, the 55, the 56, the 57. And this is an iconic American classic, a 56. And when you look at this, it's a Bel Air.
It's a post Bel Air.
It's a post
Bel Air,
which makes it kind of cool because guys that you know, you'd think the hard tops would be the one you love, but the post cars, a little more rigid, better for racing. This is, to me, the quintessential like American hot rod from the 60s.
This is it. It has the Krager mags. You know, it's probably a small block Chevy with a single 4-barrel.
Yep.
They haven't touched the body. Everything is original. They left all the emblems on it. Just put beautiful paint, nice chrome, and it typifies. This is what the American graffiti kind of car of the 60s. And it's still here.
It's got a slight rake to it. He's done the cool upholstery. He's embroidered in the
traditional roll and plate.
Come on. I mean, this is why you come to a hot rod show You want to kind of see the guys that still have these cars. And now you'll see these on an occasional cruise, maybe up Woodward, okay?
That's true.
But Joe, when you get up close to this car, this thing is flawless.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful car. And this is an example where not everybody has to spend $100,000 to bring their car to Autorama. You know, Autorama looked at this car when it was when the person applied to get into Autorama, and they said, you know what, this is probably thinking the same way you and I are. This is Americana. This is American hot rod. Let's bring it in. Let's show it to the people.
It's part
Beautiful car.
it's part of why we love coming to the shows. You want to see the cars that you see in movies, that you see. I mean, that classic collectors always have to have a shoebox Chevy in their collection, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And this also is an example of what a great job General Motors did with styling.
Yeah.
Because nothing's been touched. This is, you know, from the grille and the headlights and taillights, this is exactly the way this car came out of the factory in 1956.
Isn't that cool?
You don't have, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is an excellent example. Lace some paint, great wheels, beautiful engine, nice interior. The rest, Harley Earl, probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
Beautiful car.
Now this is what we really love, and this is what you should be looking for when you come to the Autorama. You know, you're going to see a huge mix of cars and things that are going to be so different, but you're going to see things that are familiar, and you should take the moment there and stop and kind of dial in what's really cool about it. I just see something over here, Joe. Something that's really cool. A tin Woody. So why don't we explain for everybody what a tin Woody is?
Well, John, you know, early on, cars were built, station wagons were built with metal and a lot of wood. I mean, Henry Ford owned acres and acres, thousands of acres of lumber and the UP to help produce his wooden station wagons. Later on, it became really expensive to do, and this is an example where General Motors said, let's get rid of the wood, but we really like the look of it.
Yeah.
And what they did was they gave it the wood effect, the wood look through some staining and painting, and this is called a tin Woody because it's metal that looks like wood. Beautiful example of a tin Woody.
You know, a lot of people that love the old Woody wagons, but they didn't realize, of course, outside, especially in Michigan, to drive a wood wagon, you'd have to stain it and varnish it, and the wood just didn't hold up, Joe.
Never did.
I mean, and then the expense of cutting and fitting that wood, after a while, people would just get tired of. Now, they're big in California, but a tin Woody, I mean, those guys, whoever did this work, I mean, it looks like wood. It looks like
look at the inlay.
The inlay. I mean, it's paintwork.
Magnificent.
But this is and wouldn't you love to take this? You take your family out in a Chevy Deluxe, a 52 Deluxe.
I would love to. These are beautiful. And you know, John, station wagons are hot today.
Oh yeah.
You know, the value of classic cars continue to go up, but station wagons are going up more than the average classic car today because they're just cool. The cool factor.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just wonderful.
It's the crossover. You folks that had an SUV and are buying a crossover, this is the genesis of the crossover. So
it doesn't get any better.
No, it really doesn't.
And the surfboard.
There you go. Complete with surfboard.
There you go.
Let's go keep looking at the Autorama, take you inside some of the other cool cars we're going to find here. Well, folks, you know, when you walk the Autorama, you're going to see different eras right next to each other. Joe, here we have 50s and we have 70s and the 60s somewhere in between. But when I saw this, an Olds 98.
Beautiful car.
Come on.
You know, this is an example, again, of Autorama. You have mild customs, wild customs, hot rods, and someone who's painstakingly restored this back to its, for the most part, original condition, except for the wheels and tires. Olds 98, you know, this is your father's Oldsmobile.
This is your father's Oldsmobile.
Not your father's Oldsmobile.
Or maybe your grandfather's.
The color combination is stunning.
The white and the,
God. And you know, you look in this, what the owner did when they pulled the stainless off. The stainless has been highly polished.
And it's perfect. There's
This,
a ding in it. Look at
this,
the crown.
quite frankly, is better than it left the factory many years ago. And it's an outstanding example of someone who says, I want to protect that old car. I don't want to customize it. I just want it to look perfect again. They probably love driving this car at cruise nights.
I mean, that's
outstanding example of a
and then right behind him, we
really
got a couple of
nicely done
Mustangs, you know, and then that's the beauty of this, you know. The guy he's got a 351 Ram Air.
Yep.
I mean,
Mach 1.
To get a Mach 1, and he's, you know, they're bringing their cruising cars in from, you know, from all the way from the car you borrowed in the 50s to go out on a date,
right,
to the car you may have bought in high school and driven around, or maybe, you know, you're living your second childhood.
That's true.
And a lot,
You're right.
and a lot of these
You're
Mustang guys, Camaro guys, Challenger guys, I live in their second child because pony
They're
cars.
the only ones that can afford to buy these vintage cars today. The prices are escalating, and you're right. They're reliving their youth again, and that's a good thing.
There
That's
it is.
okay.
And that's what's the fun part about coming down to Autorama. Sometimes you're going to go back through time, and for your kids, when you bring them down here, you got to explain to them, yeah, this was cool. And if you've ever had a chance to borrow your buddy's classic car and take your kids for a ride, it's an experience.
Yeah, and you bring up kids in Autorama. You know, I can't stress enough. Bring your young kids here. They might not have ever seen some of these cars, but you know they'll get an appreciation for these old cars.
Oh, yeah.
And you know they might start liking them and start working on them and,
That's
and
the hope.
continuing the hobby.
Speaking
So
of that,
bring the kids.
maybe there's something over here that the kids would recognize. That looks like
They
a
might.
Pacer from Wayne's World.
It is.
Come on, let's go look at it. We're talking here with Xavier. Xavier, you were here last year. And what did you think of the Autorama? What's your favorite kind of cars you like to look at? He likes Buick Regals? That's so cool. You're in a mission. You're in a car club. So when you get older, are you going to start working on a car before you get your license? We want Xavier to have some fun at the Autorama because we're having fun at the Autorama. And Xavier gets to walk around and pick all of his favorite cars. And then, did you come here with your family to bring a car? Yeah. See, that's the fun. And Joe's going to talk to us a little bit about what it's like to bring our car here. Xavier, we want you to have fun today, okay? Thanks for being on our show. You have fun and go out and find your favorite car for me, okay?
Yeah, have a great day.
Thank you, Xavier. One of our favorite cars, Joe, is this cool.
Doesn't get any better than
Come
this.
on,
eh?
an
Pacer.
AMC Pacer. For those of you who watched Wayne's World and they were driving that Pacer, there's a reason they drive cars that are kind of iconic. This was an iconic 70s compact.
It was, you know, the last independent car company, I think.
Right,
you know?
right. And AMC, you know, now that it's being out of business, you certainly want to celebrate some of the more iconic products they had.
You know, they were designing on a shoestring. They had no money in the bank. AMC was just about broke at the time.
Yeah.
And they were doing everything they can to come out with some really unique cars to kind of increase sales. And when you look at this, and you look at the rear window design, you're probably baked in the summer if you didn't have air conditioning with all the glass.
Exactly.
But it certainly was an interesting design. It was a great little car. And, you know,
And
just...
speaking of cars that had their moment in time, we've got here one of my favorites, really, the Pontiac Fiero. I mean, those cars, to me, what a cool idea. I mean, to have like kind of a compact, affordable, you know, the little mid-engine, fun to drive. And there were some issues when it first came out, but
there were some issues. It came out in '84. Pontiac was begging to come out with this car. They had to pitch it as a city car
Right.
to the powers to be. We're cutting the checks. They got it by. It was an instant success. Sold over 100,000 units the first year. They couldn't keep up with production. Had some, you know, basically it had Chevette front suspension when it was first launched, and so it didn't handle as well. The four-cylinder engine had a few issues with it. Ultimately, they got the car, sorted it. They sorted out the problems, and then dumped the car and stopped production.
Here's a pace car version.
This is a pace car.
Really, actually a rare car. Kind of a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, great little car.
That's why you want to come, folks. You're going to see stuff from the early 20s, made into hot rods. The 30s, as we know, the classic 30s. Even though the 40 cars have been made into cruisers. The 50s, the fat fendered cars. I really love the 50s stuff. Right into the late 50s with the big fins. All the 60s stuff that was around when I was growing up. To see the 60s, and then to see 70s and now even 80s. We're
and 90s will be 25 years old,
That's right.
officially
see-
a collector car. We might find a couple of them here.
We'll see them here.
We probably will find a few cars out of the 90s.
Let's keep on going through the Detroit Autorama. Let's follow us.
Let's do it.
Okay, now we're over here just to show you another part of the Autorama, and that's always been performance and racing. And it's a huge part of the show. Yeah, it's cool to cruise. Yeah, it's cool to have custom cars and be in the cruising scene. But people are here to see big horsepower and some of their favorite race cars from way back when. Joe, I mean, if you've ever been underneath a flip-top funny car, I mean, come on. Look at even the cracked fiberglass.
I think it hit a wall somewhere along the line. Somewhere along the line of its 4-second run.
I mean, to be this up close and personal with a real Hemi, I mean, these things are made to go, quarter of a mile in 4 seconds.
Yeah, in fact, this is the first 4-second funny car. 1993, did a 490 at about 295 miles an hour. Thousands and thousands of horsepower with the supercharged Hemi, more than likely on fuel. It's got to be one heck of a ride.
295 miles. Folks, that's faster than Kermit Potter of WMTV drives on I-696. That's pretty darn fast.
That's fast.
But then, you know, it's not just about drag racing. They got road racing stars. I mean, what person in road racing history doesn't know of the old Shelby Mustang, the GT350, one of the classic road racing cars of all time? Joe,
Built in an airport hangar in Los Angeles,
and
by
can
the
you
way.
imagine, like, that car, you know, $5,000 back then, but what some of these original GT350s, especially if they have race pedigree, they're worth $100,000?
Oh, more than that today.
I mean, can you imagine, folks, buying a Mustang that now has raised its value to $100,000? And then you get something this crazy, this little wild custom, a 78 Mustang II with a V10, a wild custom race car done out of Oregon. A guy brought it all the way up to the Autorama. Never seen anything quite this crazy. I mean,
beautiful.
That's the joy of the Autorama.
That's what makes it great. I mean, you have everything.
Let's go find out what some of the other people are coming here, and especially not only just us, the regular guys, but the corporate folks here too. Let's go take a look. Well, as you can see, it's not all about just personal cars. I mean, there's a huge corporate footprint here at the Detroit Autorama. And Joe, that's for a very good reason. When you want to sell performance parts like Mopar or Ford Racing, you got to be here where they are.
Yeah, you need to be here, and these trucks will be all over the nation. They'll go from show to show to show, and it's really important. A lot of the things they bring from the racing program winds up in production cars, and it just makes it better.
It makes it smart too that if the manufacturers are making some of their project cars or show cars, that they bring them out and let people come up and take a look at them. And to say, wait a second, I mean, if I buy that part, then I could put it on my car, and my car could look like one of the cars here at the Ford Racing stand or at Mopar or at Chevrolet. I mean, I can do that just by buying stuff out of your catalog. And Joe, that's big business.
But, you know, that is really big business today. You know, you can buy a crate motor from GM, Ford, or Chrysler. You can buy a Hemi. You can buy an LS3 with the transmission there. $18,000, but you know, instant, 500 plus horsepower drop in the car. There's a big profit for the big three and the other car companies also with their racing programs. And again, it brings people into the showroom.
That's the other thing, folks. When you come down to the Autorama, it's not just about the cars. Make sure you visit some of the corporate displays. You're going to find out things. You sign up, maybe you get a free T-shirt or a poster. There's always great giveaways from the OEMs. We know that. But it's more than just the cars. It's about what Detroit's business, which is the automobile business, is doing here at the grassroots level, talking to owners and buyers, and people are just dreaming about their next project.
That's true.
Now let's take a look at some of the other good stuff we have here.
Let's do it, John.
Well, Joe, there's a lot more to the Autorama than just the manufacturers and the cars. There's a lot of groups that come here. They try to get their name on. Maybe they're a restoration shop. Maybe they're a club. Somebody like Team Detroit Racing. And they bring a few of their cars. They got some apparel. This is really cool. This is Dan Quinn's car from Roswell, a 63 Polara.
Yeah,
I mean,
beautiful.
do you remember seeing these up on Gratiot Avenue or on Woodward?
Not only do I remember seeing one, I owned one. Unfortunately, mine had a slant 6 in it. This has a big wedge motor.
That's a big difference.
This is a go-fast car. Mine was not so fast, but beautiful Chrysler design.
Great color.
Unusual color.
Yeah,
really
it's
nice.
And that's what, and when people want to get into the Detroit racing scene, they've got everything from like new Mustangs and late model Firebirds to a classic,
Clor.
to this drop front truck. I mean, come on. So they're all part of this Detroit racing scene nowadays. Which, by the way, Joe, I mean, there's a lot of interest in guys that still want to shop build their own car.
Absolutely.
You know, there's so much being written these days. You see a lot of these things going. People are writing the check. But guess what?
A lot of these guys don't write the check. They built them in their garage.
And that's happening right here in Detroit.
Right here yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Let's go see some of the cars we might stumble into as we walk through the Autorama. Come on with us, folks. Well, Joe, we talked about the OEMs being here. They're selling their parts. But back in the day when we were working on cars, I'd get a catalog I'd get in the mail, order stuff away, or I'd go up Gratiot. We had Gratiot Auto Supply. There was a place called Ram Charges here in Detroit. There were the big speed shops. But guess what? This looks like a dealership that's selling GM performance parts.
Well, you're right, John. Years ago, you had to go to your speed shop and buy performance parts. You'd buy your small block Chevy, and then what you'd wind up doing is taking the heads off, taking them to a speed shop. The speed shop would port and polish the heads, put bigger valves. But now you just go to your Chevy dealer. You hand them your credit card. You walk out with a box with two beautiful heads. Look at these ports. These ports are huge on this.
These are breathing heads.
It's amazing. So you go to your GM, Ford, or Chrysler dealer, all the hot rod parts you need.
going fast is a part of the Detroit tradition, and nowadays it's not that difficult. It's not that hard to find. When you come to the Autorama, you're going to find yourself getting a lot of those contacts and leads that you didn't even think existed. Now, the Cavalcade or Customs are here. We have to see that.
Well, let's go take a look.
Check it out. Well, when it comes to cool cars at the Autorama, I love to see all the race cars, the stuff that's on the street today, all the modern stuff that's going on. The technology that we're seeing today, Joe, is out of this world. But there's just something about grand Detroit style and design when you look at fins.
And this is it. This is the late 50s. This is when all the fins began. Probably the most famous is the 59 Cadillac, but here's a Dodge with a small fin. And you look at this Chrysler here, this 300C.
And folks, look at this engine.
It's a magnificent car. It has a dual quad Hemi. Look at the lines on it. Very simple, slab-sided, very nice fin, but not too tall. The styling, Virgil Exner styling, just magnificent. This is an excellent example of 50s, just beautiful design.
Now, a lot of these cars show up. Here's a guy that's a Precision Paint and Restoration in Hillsdale. They bring in their cars to show off what they can do with these cars. But folks, just the beauty to come here and have your kids appreciate that your minivan didn't have to look like a block of steel. This is what steel looked like in Detroit.
This is when cars weren't designed by a committee.
Correct.
They were designed by a designer who owned the styling, and what he said went.
What you guys might not know, a lot of the guys that drew these cars back in the 50s and the 40s and the 60s were actually sculptors and artists themselves. These guys are true artists. This is Detroit iron at its finest, but some people don't really appreciate this. They want to change it. They want to customize what our Detroit designers did, and that's why we've got to see some of those custom cars. Let's go, Joe.
Let's go take a look.
Well, when you talk about custom cars, the Cavalcade of Customs is what you come to see. And Joe, why is it that when you come over here, these cars look vaguely familiar, but these guys do all kinds of little tricks to really change what you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, here's an example. It's an old Mercury. It is pretty much a stock body, but they've taken the door handles off and smoothed it out. They fringed the headlights, which means they put them in a little tunnel. They've taken some chrome up, shaved some chrome, and of course put a beautiful custom orange paint job on it.
Unbelievable. And when I think of cool old Chevys, you always think the grills were so important back in the day. The grill, this car coming at you, is it's its face, if you will, the face of the automobile. And the customizers love to play with grill work.
That's true. And this is a stock Chevy grill. This is a 54 Chevy, and it's a 54 Chevy grill.
Right.
But they've added a couple extra teeth to it. And again, same scenario. They've fringed the headlights, smoothed the hood, and it looks like they might have chopped the top on this car, possibly.
It doesn't stop there. I mean, we've got to keep going. In fact, folks, for those of you that can't afford these big ones, we can find here at the Autorama maybe something in 1/18 scale. Let's go look at the toys.
Let's do it.
Well, we talk about the Autorama being just a toy store for guys, but our big toys, our expensive toys, are cars. But there are other toys here at the Autorama, and they're not that expensive.
That's true.
So this is your way to bring the family down and let the kids go. They call this the Autorama Toyorama, and you come down and you can look at all the wonderful things that you can collect, even as kids, from the little Matchbox cars up to big diecast, to some really expensive stuff. I see a couple of stoplights down there.
Usually a few $100.
If you want to outfit your man cave, you come down here, you look at the cars, you get all geeked up what you got to have, and then you come over here to the Toyorama, Joe.
Yeah, well, maybe Dad can score a real car that might be for sale at the show, and the youngsters can pick up their little toy car version of it. You never know.
Try to find. So, Autorama, Joe, in a nutshell, I mean, it's visually stimulating. It makes your mind think about what you could do with a car if you had that project, and then it's for the family as well.
It is. It's for people of all ages. Bring the kids, bring the grandkids. Everybody will enjoy it. There's something for everybody here.
Right. If you happen to be down here for a little bit of time and you want to sit down and relax, they even have a food court. I think we've shown just a little taste of the Autorama. Now, maybe we can get a hot dog or a pretzel or a Pepsi.
Sounds good.
Let's go decompress a few minutes and talk about really why we want everybody to come visit this. If they didn't do it this year, they should need to do it next year.
Absolutely.
Let's go. Well, folks, we're here at Finish Line Coffee. We're really not finished. You can't believe how the time flies, Joe. But thanks again, Joe Babiasz, automotivetraveler.com. Thanks for coming out, Joe.
Anytime. What a great show.
Folks, we'll have to do another show about what's downstairs at the Autorama. Make sure you tune into Cars in Context for that. And for the rest of you, come on down. If you haven't been able to make it this year, come on down next year. And that's what Detroit is all about. Again, I appreciate you watching. Remember that knowledge is power. I've been your host, John Clor. Thanks for watching.